Hello, everybody. I'm delighted to be asked to be with you for Healthcare Simulation Week this September. So in preparation for this talk, I really had to think about what is everybody else going to say and what am I going to say to my good friends here in the Middle East. And I really had to think about overall what is being published and what do you see, what are the pressing problems in healthcare simulation today. So I looked at the major simulation journals and I looked at their most highly cited articles for 2023, post-pandemic, thank goodness, and really from there gleaned what are the issues and problems that have emerged that we can all work on and look forward to in this next year, and how are we going to help each other. So let's go. What are the currently most cited articles in the major simulation journals? And if you can believe it, you can't make this stuff up. The first one I looked at was, well, I think what we all consider the big dog, simulation in healthcare. And under their five top most accessed or popular articles, it says data is temporarily unavailable. Please try again soon. So we'll all do that. But for this talk, we don't have anything from them. What was available are their top 5 most emailed articles, and of course, all of those are open access, which makes perfect sense. So here they are. I'm going to let you just kind of look at those. I'm not going to talk over this for the moment. But the one that looked the most intriguing to me was implementing faculty development programs, moving from theory to practice. I find it fascinating that so many times people read articles but then cannot figure out how to implement them in their own programs. And I thought at first this was maybe just one or two places, but this seems to be a fairly common thing. And it's something that we have to help each other with. And then I looked at BMJ Stell and had forgotten that it ceased publication in July 2021. So that tells us many, many things. And I know that BMJ Stell was the flagship of the European Simulation Society. They went with another journal later on. This is, I guess it's the growth of a profession and a discipline that some journals last and some journals don't last. They have a lot of good articles in them, however, and I recommend taking a look at what they do have available. Advances in Simulation has their 5 top most accessed articles available, thank goodness. And I thought it was interesting that the Standardized Patient Educators Standards of Best Practice, published in 2017, was still available and one of the most accessed articles. This tells us that they are standardizing their practice and that people around the world are interested in trying to do high quality standardized patient practice. So that's a good sign. The other things that I found most interesting and then it seemed to go across different disciplines and journals was the validation of educational assessments. We seem to be very interested in that. And OSCE best practice guidelines applicability for nursing simulations. This is really interesting to me because in the United States, one of the 2 major accrediting bodies, the Association for Colleges of Nursing, is pushing competency-based education, and that is great. But now everybody wants to know how to do it well and do high quality evaluation of their learners. And so this is something that is really becoming common. And it's been common in medicine for a while, so nursing is finally joining their colleagues there. From the International Journal of Healthcare Simulation, their top 5 most accessed articles are all over the map. The one that was most interesting to me is the imposter phenomenon in healthcare simulation educators. And so I begin to pick up a theme here through the currently most cited articles across journals. So what do we see here from clinical simulation in nursing and their most cited articles for the past 3 years? It's interesting to me that the healthcare standards of best practice are the documents that are the most downloaded and cited. Simulation design, the briefing process, and the pre-briefing process. So we see some themes developing here. And those really are that faculty development seems to be an undercurrent flowing through everything that we're writing about and that we're working on, and that some of us feel like we're imposters and that we don't feel quite up to par, or that we don't feel quite prepared for the role that we have now taken on. And that we're looking for some standardization and standards for faculty and simulation practice so that we are providing a high quality simulation when we're doing it. The latest and greatest thing that has occurred for us all is artificial intelligence. So I thought I would ask ChatGPT, what are the 5 most pressing problems in healthcare simulation today? And it came up with these. I don't agree at all with realism and immersion. I think AI is really out there on a limb on this one, all on its own. Standardization, interoperability, maybe, but I thought it was interesting that it too picked up on assessment and validation of simulations. So good on AI. So I asked ChatGPT in another way. What are the 5 most intriguing issues in healthcare simulation today? And I kind of agree with this list, I guess. Interdisciplinary collaboration and training. I don't know that it's intriguing. I think it's the most difficult, and so I would agree with that. High fidelity versus low fidelity simulation. I don't find that intriguing. I don't agree with that. Standardization and assessment. I would agree with that one, and I think we're seeing that theme run through. And then the integration of VR and AR into simulation. I would agree. I don't know if it's intriguing. It's the next big thing. There is that. The important thing to know about ChatGPT, and it confessed as I was asking these questions, it states at the top of the list that it's giving me, as my knowledge update, as of my last knowledge update in September 2021, healthcare simulation is an evolving field that combines technology, education, and healthcare to improve training, research, and patient outcomes. The most pressing problems or the most intriguing problems in healthcare can vary over time, but as of this point, and it's from 2021, so it has missed the advent of AI and how we're using it in healthcare, and the fact that VR is just exploding and AR is exploding across the landscape. So interesting that this is what ChatGPT comes up with for us. So in a chapter for a book that I recently wrote with my good friend Elizabeth Wells Beatty, what we found that we think is really impacting healthcare today in simulation is that 40% say that they really are still untrained as of 2018 in an article that was published by Smiley, who's with the National Council of State Boards of Nursing. So this is a little US centric, but I think it probably holds pretty much everywhere. And that 62% of faculty have formal training in simulation, which means that a bunch of us do not have training in simulation. This was specifically for nursing, but I think this holds true in many places. Evaluation tools are needed for learner assessment, validated tools, not made up specifically for one place versus another. So I think there's going to be a whole cottage industry nationally of people trying to come up with good assessment and evaluation tools for nursing education that cover a broad swath. And medical education has been dealing with this for quite a while now with their EPAs, entrustable professional activities. So good for medicine. Nursing's late to the game, but we're catching up slowly but surely. And that we need educator development and its impact on what happens in simulation. That we are all trying to use the healthcare simulation practices that are of high quality, that deliberate practice is becoming more and more common. Nursing doesn't like to do deliberate practice because that means this is my opinion, we have to change how we teach. I don't get to show you and then you do a return demonstration. I check you off and then we say we're finished. We know from cognitive science and from the deliberate practice literature that that's not how our minds work, and that we will need to revisit things in the future. And that AI is going to be really big, but we did not recognize its preeminence until later. So it's interesting that it's had to change. It's made us change a lot of things that we thought we were going to be doing in the next couple of years here, basically overnight. And I would say in the last 4 months. So things can change on a dime in the technology that we use in simulation today, for sure. So from all of that, what I want to say is the rest of the talk is about what I think, because you asked me to talk, so I'm going to tell you. And I always have something to say, whether it's right or not. I have something to say. But let's see what I'm going to say. So what we know from other recent publications are that 68% of faculty report being unprepared for using innovative pedagogies and technology. Boy, you know how things were when AI suddenly appeared on the horizon, and everybody was immediately trying to stop students from using it and trying to figure out if students were using it and to write papers, and how are we going to stop this. I would say that that is 100% the wrong way to go about this. We need to be embracing it, all these different tools that are going to be available to us, because we have to learn how to use them wisely. As soon as you hear the word AI, the thing that comes right after it is hallucination. And hallucination is when ChatGPT can't figure out what might need to be said, it makes things up. And we as consumers have to be able to decide if what ChatGPT is telling us is correct or incorrect. And how are we going to do that? We have to teach our students, our learners today, how to use these tools, not run away from them, because the minute they're not in school or the minute they graduate, they're going to be surrounded by them. So I think we just have to think about it as this is another way we're going to have to be teaching now. And that we have to be teaching each other constantly. This is a picture from me with some of our doctoral students, now graduates, PhD, recent doctoral students, who got a grant, and we taught 50 nurses in the state of Texas how to use the standards of best practice in nursing education today and how to do good, high quality simulation. What's interesting is that we had people there who did not know there were standards of best practice, and that might not have necessarily really embraced the standards of best practice because they might have had to change what they've been doing. This is concerning, and we'll talk more about that. So how is all of this information I've shared with you reflected in health professions education and simulation education today? There's nothing really special about health professions education or nursing or medicine. Educators in general are slow to change, and we don't like to do things differently than what our comfort level is. And I think some of this is because we don't want to look like we don't know what we're doing. Something that I learned, I have to say, many years ago, uh, was that the students are always going to be ahead of us in the latest apps and methodologies, and that it's better to let them teach me than for me to ignore what they're doing or to not want to know what they're doing, because I might really love some of what they're doing and want to adopt it myself. So we can either hide our heads in the sand or we can embrace things and ask our students to help us learn. I had a student teach me how to do PowerPoint. I'd actually told him, I will pay you to teach me how to do this. And he just laughed hysterically. He said, you don't have to pay me. I can show you, you're going to understand it in 10 minutes. And you know what? He was right. If you're new to sim, you don't remember back, 10, 12 years ago at the big international meeting of the Society for Simulation in Healthcare, that there used to be funny, ha-ha debates on should you kill the mannequin, yes or no. And it was seen as like a funny thing to do shock and awe and things like this with medical students. And they had a few people leave medicine because of things like this, because people felt so inadequate after they killed the patient and were told they killed the patient. They thought maybe they weren't smart enough to be a physician. That made big news at IMSH, and we slowly quelled that there over the years. But you may remember that from way back. This has reared its ugly head again in nursing education. And I want to think that this probably started during COVID because people were pressed into service to help meet clinical needs during COVID that had no training, may not have known that there were standards of best practice in nursing education. and found something that they thought worked for them and have continued it. Recently, I had a LinkedIn stream that listed case after case after case of abuse of nursing students. Easy to find. Please go there if you're more interested in this. But to sum it up, there is abuse of nursing students going on. And we hear about it more from the hospitals that inherit these nursing students when they find out that, oh my gosh, I'm still going to be doing simulation. I'm going to be doing it in the hospital. They're waiting for bad things to start happening to them. And the hospital simulationists are having to talk people down off the ceiling, calm them down, stop the crying, stop the hives, stop the sweating profusely that students are experiencing when they find out that they're going to be doing simulation yet again. This is going to follow them into their nursing careers. So we were asked to write an article for SimZine on this, and it should be out probably in this next month. I'm sure in this next month. You can find it on SimZine. Elizabeth Wells Bede and I wrote this article. And it is, I want to say it's unintentional. Worst case, it is intentional, and that people are really proud of the term shock and awe. They've said it themselves. And this is why I think faculty development and faculty education for simulation is even more important now than it's ever been before. You have to think about simulation like a medical treatment or a treatment that we would do for a patient. Is that if you're not qualified or you've never been trained to do it, you don't do it, or you go get help. You don't just do things on your own. And really, unskilled and untrained simulation facilitators are dangerous, and they can do great damage to our workforce. Indeed, I don't know that they're not doing great damage to our workforce. So we want to think about it like educational malpractice, just like medical malpractice and nursing malpractice. So I'm going to advocate for something that might be a little scary, and that is self-review and peer review. This means that when I think I have done a particularly good job in a debriefing, I might have had it recorded in the system and ask a peer to give me some pointers or some evaluation on, was I as good as I thought I was? And sometimes, to my surprise, I may find out that there are some things I could do better on. There are also times when we know that we have a debriefing that for some reason it just goes awry. It would be a really good idea to have these recorded. And we recorded in where I was a director of a simulation center, we recorded all of our debriefings. I could go back to that particular debriefing and ask for peer evaluation from my compatriots and get some pointers. I could say, this is where I really feel things went off the rails. And I would like to get some feedback on this. How would you have handled this? What could I have done better? What are alternate things that could have been done? So this is something for us all to take a big step forward in our growth and maturity and ask for peer feedback. I think it's something that we're going to really have to embrace moving forward. I don't think we realized, maybe until recently, we spent a lot of time looking at the mannequin and realism and all these other things. And it's such a typical faculty thing that we don't like to look at ourselves. And I think we might have missed the boat here in simulation and not realized how important our role actually is to the whole simulation experience. We set the tone. We provide a safe container for learning. We have to walk the walk and talk the talk and model the behavior of we're all trying to get better at this. And so I think we really have to think about the skill of the debriefer or the facilitator and the debriefing method used and the culture created by the debriefer are every bit as important as whatever tool we're using to run a simulation with. So we have spent money on everything else, and now I think it's time to look at ourselves. So what I'm saying is we really don't want to use untrained simulation educators. It's a bad move. And we want to, if we realize we're untrained, we need to be asking for peer feedback and for help. So that's all I'm going to say about that one. But I think it's pretty obvious we don't want to put people into simulation that have not been educated in some way and had some feedback on their technique. By the same token, if you see unsafe practice, if you see students being berated by a facilitator or a simulationist, if you are concerned about the environment that students are practicing in, you need to say something. Just letting it continue because I don't feel that it's my place or that I am lower on the hierarchy than somebody. I think we all have a duty to the next generation of healthcare providers that we stop the cycle of hierarchy and letting abuse go on. We need to stop it now. I would say that we have enough evidence that it exists and that it might be getting worse. We don't want that to happen. We just need to say something when we see this. It can be done in a polite way. We can use our feedback learnings that we've done and really have an adult conversation with somebody about techniques that we see that we're concerned about. Just think about the words that we use in simulation and helping people see and get better at getting better. We can do that for debriefing unsafe practices also. While I was working on this, it dawned on me that just like we put safety tags on different items, I'm wondering if we should have a safety sticker on mannequins that say, may cause psychological harm, to be used only by trained educators or instructors. I'm wondering what you think about that. So in conclusion, I'd like to say we know that simulation is not going away, that we need prepared faculty or educators in health professions education and in nursing education in particular. We need to demand faculty development in simulation and for all the other technology that's coming down the pike that we're going to be using in simulation, or say, no, I'm not qualified to be using this equipment, or I'm not qualified in the pedagogy of simulation at this time, so I think you need to educate me. And once we are educated, we need to be working on self and peer evaluation as we move forward. And that really concludes my message for Healthcare Simulation Week. And these are my references.